Herman, just trying to get a head count. Do we have any council members logged on yet or no?
No, there is one iPhone, but I'm not so sure. But no council members yet.
But Councilmember Dieguez, Ed, is already ready.
Okay.
Logging in the few seconds.
Okay.
And Councilmember Rodriguez is ready too. And Councilmember Jeffrey Rodriguez is as well logging in the next few minutes.
Okay.
So I think we only need Councilmember Collazo and Juan Alvarez. I have been texting them just to remind them.
Do we know who the iPhone is?
I don't.
No, I tried to unmute the person and ask the question, but no, hasn't opened the mic yet.
Okay. Charles, how are you? And Ismael?
I keep forgetting to turn on the mute. How are you doing?
Good, good, good. Welcome to the Zoom world.
Thank you.
Gina, when you get a chance, can you check with Ismael?
Yes,
He's
of course.
He's one of the stars of this show, so we need him.
Yes, let me text him.
Thank you.
Of course, sir.
Don't call me, sir.
It's out of respect.
There was a lot of respect with that. You're older than her. That's why she called you sir.
I know. I love it. Okay. Ismael. Okay, so I see Councilmember Jeffrey Rodriguez. I see Vice Mayor, and I believe Councilmember Diego is probably logging in as we speak. I have texted Ismael, and I am waiting for, let me remind Councilwoman and
Hey, everybody.
yeah, I see Councilmember
Hey, how are you?
Dieguez.
Good.
Hey, Councilmember Diego?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Isma.
What am I hearing?
So we have Ben, we have Charles, we have Ismael, We have 1, 2, 3 council members. I saw somebody leave.
Yes. Councilmember Alvarez won't be able to join the meeting, but we're still waiting for Councilwoman Ruano.
There she is. She's there.
Yes, we see her, and Councilmember Collazo.
Okay, so
So Gina, is there anybody of the council members that confirmed that we have 1, 2?
Yes, Councilmember Collazo. Yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm in my car, so I won't have my video on.
All right, we see you. We see your
How are
picture.
you?
Good.
Yes, Mr. Manager, the only council member that confirmed that I don't see his picture is Councilmember Collazo. So let me see.
He's not the iPhone, right?
Maybe a few minutes.
There he is. He's there. There he is. I recognize the yellow and white canopy.
He's a little twisted.
Okay, perfect.
You're a little twisted, Louis.
Herman, I'm having issues here. I can't, I don't have the share button anymore for some reason.
Yeah, no, you log out. Let me make you the co-host again. Hold on.
Louis, you're all twisted up in the game, brother. It's a little weird looking at Louis sideways.
There you go.
Now.
Ismael, Herman, whenever you guys are ready to go and kickstart it, I think we have the 5 council members that that confirmed that will definitely be here. So you guys, whenever you're ready, you guys can get started. Was there anything you wanted to kick off with, Vice Mayor or Councilmember Dieguez? I know this was originally your request.
No, I'm good for now. I'm ready to listen, and then I'll go from there.
Good enough.
All right, so you guys are seeing the screen that says Town of Miami Lakes Investment Policy Workshop, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right.
One second, Ismael.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Inguanzo, do we need to do anything before we start?
We don't.
To call to order.
No.
It's a workshop, right?
It's a workshop. We don't need quorum, but I'm taking notes. The workshop will start at 6:33 p.m.
Okay, thank you. And Ismael and the manager and to all the people logged on. I'm at the fire station today, so if something comes up, I'll be in and out. I'll keep the system on so I don't lose the connection, but just so you know, in case I disappear. Okay?
Not a problem. Thank you so much.
And thank you. In case I don't see you guys again, thank you for putting this together. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you guys for your support, like always.
And Councilman Dieguez, don't forget that this is your initiative. It's very important that any questions, and if I leave the meeting, go ahead and continue to make sure that that all your issues and everything that you worked on was addressed.
Thank you very much.
All right, let me check one more thing before we start here. Herman, do you see the page changing?
Yes, I see your presentation and the page is changing, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members and residents and staff. Welcome to the investment policy workshop. You received a copy of the investment policy, also the current investment portfolio as of May 31st for your information. That was included in the package. We also updated the portfolio as of last Friday. So we'll be looking at that and discussing that. We will discuss this policy in summary. We're going to see some of the highlights. We have like 30 slides here, so I promise you that I'm going to try to make this workshop as captivating and inspiring as possible. But if I don't hold that against me, please. No, it's going to be fine. We're also going to hear from Charles Gutierrez. Charles is a committee member since inception, so you'll be able to ask him any questions that you would like about the committee itself. We are also joined by Ben Day. Ben Day is one of the managers for Valley View, and they are our investment advisor. And Ben is going to discuss one of the slides, and also he will talk about the economic overview, and you'll be able to ask him any questions about what's going on in the nation, because Ben is kind of involved in so many things. So as you can see, we're going to be talking about, again, the investment policy, the investment committee, the investment advisor, the procedures on how we procure investments, the current investment portfolio, investment trends, revenue trends, because how much have we earned in interest, like since 2012. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the current economic overview, and this is a very general talk. That Ben is going to help us all to understand what's going on, and we can ask any questions.
Ismael.
So, yes, ma'am.
Before you start your PowerPoint presentation, I just want to make sure, because we always follow the order of the agenda. Germán, has anybody called for public comments? I just want to make sure that we always give an opportunity for the public to make their comments if there is one. I think you mentioned no one, but just for the record, I want to, state we're giving the public an opportunity. Is there anyone waiting for public comments? Please speak now. No one, Germán?
There is no one from the public. There is just one participant identified as iPhone. I tried to unmute and ask if it's for public comments, but no answer. The rest is all participants identified already.
Okay, very well. Thank you. Ismael, you may proceed, and thank you.
Thank you, Gina, or Madam Clerk. Investment policy highlights. This policy is compliant with Florida state statutes. The policy also applies to all funds. We apply this policy to all funds. We treat one fund a little bit different because it's the debt fund, and it carries the investments for the bond, but the policy is applied to that fund also. The goals of the investment policy, and this is very important. And again, I'm going to be reading a little bit, but it's all very understandable. To have effective cash management, which is essential to good fiscal management, which is primarily here. To pursue the maximization of investment interest as viable and material revenue. The town's portfolio should be designed and managed in a manner responsible to public trust and consistent with state and federal laws. And you will see that throughout this presentation. And very important, investment should be made with these primary objectives in order of importance: safety, liquidity, risk, or yield. And as you see on the bottom, we say that ROI is secondary, or return on investment is secondary to safety and liquidity. So we focus on safety and liquidity, and then yield. What does that mean? Well, that means that if there's an investment that is paying a very high yield, but it's not safe, we're not going to jump into that investment. If it's not liquid, we're going to also consider that. This helped us when we had Hurricane Irma. It was very important because you're going to see how we lose a CD ladder a little bit later, and every 6 months we were having $1 million come back as liquid money back into our operating account, so we were able to pay for the operations. So it's important that we are also liquid. So we will be focusing, again, the whole policy focuses on safety, liquidity, and then risk. Guidelines and focus to ensure objectives: preservation of capital and protection of principal. That's extremely important. Maintenance of liquidity to meet operational needs. Security of town funds and investments. Again, we go back to security. Diversification of investment to avoid risk. So, and we're going to see a little bit more down the line in this presentation where we do diversify our investments. Now, we don't have a whole buffet of diversification because we want to avoid risk, but we do diversify. We have money market accounts, we have CDs, we have CDARS, and different type of investments, so we can diversify, but at the same time avoid the risk. Optimization of interest income, we're also going to touch a little bit on that. Now, delegation of authority. So the town manager and the finance director are designated as investment officers and responsible for investment decisions. So all investment decisions that are made between both of us, and our investment advisor has no say in any decision that we make with the investment. They can give us their opinion, same as the committee, but we make those final decisions. No person may engage in an investment transaction except as provided under the terms of this policy and the procedures so established, self-explanatory. The town council may appoint an outside investment advisor to assist with the management of the town's investment portfolio. Our current investment advisor does not have discretionary authority over our portfolio. Again, our investment advisor helps us with the investment, advises, does the RFP and the solicitations, and does many other things for us. But they have no discretionary authority, and they don't have any of our monies. They don't have access to our accounts. They don't have any of that authority. And then the council has appointed this investment advisor because of the contract that is approved and so forth. And the council has I guess the responsibility and the right to provide us with investment advisor if they please. Performance measurement and strategies. We safeguard all funds equally by focusing on safety and liquidity regardless of the investment, including the debt fund, which has its own investment in the form of a CD and compliance with the Series 210 bond requirements. So again, we treat all our investments the same. But the Series 2010 bond has a CD that is specifically for the bond and is in the covenants of the bond. So we keep that investment separate in the debt fund, and it's in a form of a CD. Is one of the ways that we could invest the money, and that's how we've had it since we have the bond. We got the bond. So I don't know if you guys remember. I believe it was last year. We have a little overage, and that was actually the interest from that bond.
Ismael, a quick question on that.
Sure.
What's the term on that CD? Is it for the life of the bond?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
The term on that CD, is it for the life of the bond?
Yes. And what happens is, as the life, the more years that pass, the more is reduced. So like last year, it went from $600 and something thousand to like $580,000. So we had an overage that we could actually pull back into the general fund.
Okay, and the interest that was generated from that CD, was that used to apply toward the payments on the bond, or?
No, because we're taking money from the electric utility, which is kind of the general fund, to pay for the interest and the principal. So when we have overage, we just put it back into the general fund.
Okay, and which line item does it go into in the general fund?
Well, whenever we do that, which is every 2, we've never done it until last year. We just kept accumulating the money into the bond, into the CD, and re-engaging on that CD and reissuing it until last year. Last year we had an overage of I think it was 130,000, so we pulled it out.
Got it. Thank you.
So it was this year, yeah. But that stays on that debt fund. Prudence and ethical standards. Investments should be made with judgment and care, prudence, no speculations, and focus on safety. Policy calls for adherence to the Miami-Dade County Code of Ethics. An investments officer, the town manager and finance director, should refrain from personal business activity that could conflict with proper execution of the investment or impair investment decision. And that's something very important to us and something that we really adhere to. Maturity and diversification. Our investments are limited to 2 years, and now we start getting here on how is it that we transact, how is it that we make our investments and procure them. So our investments are limited to 2 years, and I'm going to jump here onto number 3 real quick because, well, let's go to number 2. We only invest at this point. We only invest in money market accounts, SBA. Money market accounts, CDARS, and certificate of deposits. CDARS is a type of certificate of deposit. And what we do, a strategy that we were introduced to by actually Valley View, was that we do a CD for 6 months, one for 12 months, 18 months, and 24 months. And it's a ladder, and it works very, very well. And it's in line with our goals because what it does is safe because it's a CD, but at the same time, it provides liquidity every 6 months. So we do $1 million, a CD for $1 million for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and 24 months, having $4 million in CDs, and every 6 months, we always have $1 million liquid. This really helped, again, with Irma, because after we spend almost $5 million with Hurricane Irma, each time these CDs matured, we kept the money. We didn't re-engage on those CDs and relist them. So because we needed that liquid money, so it really helped. And that's the way that we do that. And as you see, the longest investment is 24 months, which goes back to number 1, which is limited to 2 years. Authorized investment. Now, what I'm going to do here in authorized investment is I'm going to have Mr. Ben Day, which is the manager, one of the managers at Valley View. Let me tell you a little bit about Ben. Ben Day's family has roots in South Florida, where his grandfather really started and operated a feed and grain and hardware business in Coral Gables. This was during and after the Great Depression. So discussing commodities and securities and bonds pricing was an everyday talk at mealtime. Ben is one of the team members for public fund portfolio in Valley View Consulting, and he was registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission in '84. And the states of which he most closely watches for public fund activity include Florida, Texas, North Carolina, and Virginia. So Ben, the floor is yours, and he's going to be talking about authorized investments. Ben, you're muted.
How's that? Is that
now you are. You're good.
Great, thank you. It's good to be with you all tonight. Let's kind of go through some of these things, and just please stop me. I'm going to try to kind of hit the high points of this and not get into the details, but try to make it interesting. Direct obligations of the U.S. government, that of course is going to include treasuries. That's probably the big item. But it's also going to include things that are called GSEs, government-sponsored activities or enterprises, like Fannie Mae, Federal National Mortgage Association, Ginnie Mae, Government National Mortgage, Sallie Mae, you've all heard of that, right? Well, guess what? That's not one of them. And the reason is that Sallie Mae started off as a GSE, but since they went public, they are no longer considered a direct obligation of the U.S. government. It's kind of a trick topic because a lot of people want to look at a yield on a Sallie Mae and say, oh, it's Sallie Mae, it's backed up by the government, it's good. And really, it's kind of not. The other thing to be looking at with that is that there's been a lot of current topics, this talk about relieving and forgiving student loans. It'll be real interesting to see how that one falls, and it'll be one of important topics. If you're looking at a government portfolio and you see a Sallie Mae in that portfolio, you want to kind of watch that one. It's not that they're illegal. It's not that you can't do it. It's just that those fall under a different category and you're taking on risk. And as Ishmael talked about earlier, when we're really talking about investment policies, we're looking at safety, liquidity, and yield. Let's see, agencies or instrumentalities. In Florida, it's a pretty wide open palette. And basically, as long as we've got something that's going to be AA rated or better, you're going to be good with that. Of course, all the municipals are going to be included as something that you can invest in. It's important to mention that in this market and what we're seeing with rates being as low as they are, kind of like they were 10 years ago, we are seeing better value in the CD market, which is why we ladder out the CDs. It's not that we don't have any more arrows in our quiver or bullets in our gun, so to speak. It's just that we try to go to wherever the safety, liquidity, and the yield will give us the best value. And for the last couple of years, because of the size of the Florida market, there's a ton of banks down there, and they're always, that list is changing. They show up as what's called a QPD, Qualified Public Depository. You can go on the Florida Treasurer's site and just pull it up. I think, Ishmael, the last time we looked at that at their last solicitation, I think we had something like 130, 140 banks on it, and they're all over the state. And all that means is that here's our qualified list that the treasurer's already signed off on. That's going to be the pool of banks that we need to go talk to about deposits. Now, item number 2, SEC registered money market funds, money market mutual funds, excuse me. Ishmael and I talked about this one yesterday. I've done some more thinking on it. Whenever we see the term mutual fund, that's going to be the kicker in this definition. Mutual fund will imply that there can be a variance of the net asset value, net NAV. And I haven't looked at a newspaper in a few years to even know. You used to be able to go to the stock page and see what the NAV of all these things were. Now you go online or you look at your account and see what your NAV is going to be. What we want to make sure is that the SEC registered part of this, that basically if there's a brokerage firm or some type of an insurance company that's offering some type of a security, and that is also a money market mutual fund, that it doesn't bust the buck, meaning the NAV in is $1 and the NAV out is $1. We have seen some situations going back to the beginning of money markets where when these money markets bust the buck, it can cause all sorts of havoc and problems and cause all sorts of commotion. So what we're looking for is for a company like Goldman Sachs or, I don't know, Merrill Lynch, their SEC registered money markets to have an NAV of $1. Also, just off the cuff, those are going to be the mutual funds that show up in your retirement plans as well. There's not going to be much fluctuation, if any, and you're going to see that in the yield. The yield is where you're going to see the value of that thing increase or decrease. But with a money market, we're looking for safety and liquidity. Let's see, number 3, insured and fully collateralized CDs and money market accounts in financial institutions that are QPDs approved by the state. This is one that we really don't get enough questions about, but it kind of goes without saying that whenever we have a deposit in a bank that's over $250,000, how does that thing get covered? Because FDIC covers that up to $250,000. And whether it's the town's money market or another CD, there are a couple of different ways that Ishmael is looking at this, and me as well, to make sure that the town's money is covered, and that's through some collateralization agreement. Basically what happens is that we have a bank that says, sure, we'll take your $1 million, we'll commit for a year, and we're going to give you 1% interest on that, kind of in today's market. Well, what happens is that the state treasurer's office keeps what's called a collateral pool. And this pool, there will be an account by each of these QPD banks. And when Bank X gets a deposit for the town of Miami Lakes, they will put $750,000 in that pool earmarked for the town of Miami Lakes. Now, you can go and look at your collateral report at any time, but this is something that gets marked to the market at the end of each month. Mark to the market just means, does the collateral in the account equal and cover the amount of the CD should there be some problem with the bank? This happens all behind the scenes. This is one of those things that it can cause you great consternation if you've never dealt with it before, but it is a highly well-defined and oiled machine that works very well. And for banks that don't participate in the collateral pool, they may also issue something called a letter of credit. The bank goes out and buys this letter of credit. It's for the benefit of the town, city, county, school district, whatever it is. And that will be in effect till maturity plus a few days. Plus a few days to give folks plenty of time to know where they're going to move that money. Transfer it, roll it over, do something else with it, take it out. I'd like to leave the discussion at that, unless somebody's got a burning question, because if we get much more into the detail of the accounting and how this really works, I'm afraid we're going to put some people to sleep and probably raise more questions than I'm answering, okay? So trust me, the collateral pool for Florida, it is sound, it is for your benefit, and all municipalities in the state of Florida, and it works really well.
And it's I think it's important to say that if the bank is not QPD, that we don't engage with them. So
we can't. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
We can't.
Right.
That's
So
exactly right.
and there's times where we have, let's say that we have $3 million to invest, which we never do. But let's say that we have $3 million and we want a CD for $3 million because it's a great rate. The bank might come back and say we can only take 2 because they can only collateralize the 2, and not the 3, and that's fine. If they tell us that up front, and we'll do what we have to do, but we make sure that principal is collateralized.
Correct.
Sorry, Ben.
Absolutely. No, good addition there. I'm going to give you an example of a bank also that you will see in South Florida. It's called Bank OZK. They're based out of Arkansas, fine bank. And they specifically have made the choice to not participate in the Florida QPD program. And the reason is that they feel like they have got plenty of public funds from the other states that they participate in. Texas, Louisiana, Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, that type of thing. So you may see a Bank OZK on your street corner. I don't think there is one in Miami Lakes, but there might. I know there's 1 or 2 in South Florida, and that also happens as well. So just because a bank is in Florida doesn't mean they're a QPD. Just because they're a QPD, just because they're a QPD somewhere else doesn't mean they're a QPD in your state. So it all is case by case. Let's see. Intergovernmental Florida investment pools like Florida Prime, SBA, State Board of Administration. Right now, you can go on the Florida Treasurer's website. The yield on this thing is 0.43. That is a tremendous yield. I think this is a $14 billion fund. Most everybody that's running a government entity in Florida has some kind of money in it. Where they are getting their yield predominantly, because a 43% or 43 basis point money market yield is a very attractive yield, but most of that comes from corporate paper. All of these have been coming down across the country. 43 is not out of the ordinary. It's kind of on the mid to high range of what most of these limited government investment pools are paying. But it's a good place to park some money. But you got to understand that yield is highly variable, and it's because of their commercial paper and how they manage that portfolio. It's the same issue that we all deal with. How do I get yield? How do I get safety? How do I have liquidity? So the Florida Prime, great pool. If someone wants to do some history, go back about 15 years. Florida had a pool that quote unquote blew up. Everybody was made whole in it, but it just took time to get settlement on it. Town of Miami Lakes had some money in that. Y'all guys were made whole. I think it was 2 Decembers ago, something like that. But they happen from time to time. It's not unusual, but usually everybody gets made whole, and you don't lose a dollar. It may take you a while to get it back, but you usually don't lose. Let's see. Repo agreements. Here's a trick question. Repo agreements. Who here in this room has ever been involved in a repurchase agreement? It's a trick question, and everybody needs to raise your hand. The repurchase market is the, thank you. The repurchase market is the world's largest money market. When you deposit $100 into your bank, where does it go? Well, some trader somewhere looks at a sheet, and he sees how, or she sees how much cash is coming into that account on that day, and they have to invest that at an overnight rate. They have to put their cash out. They have to actually buy a certificate, some type of security that's approved, and make a trade. That's when you actually earn money. When that money just sits, it doesn't earn anything. So the way you get your yield off of your checking account, off of your savings account, off of your IRA account, off of your corporate or church or whatever that thing is, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, basketball team, high school sports team, whatever, how you actually get a yield is through the repurchase market. It's not that complicated, but I can tell you right now, it's not going to be easy to explain it. So please take my word that when you put your $100 in your bank account, you are involved in the repurchase market, and that's how you get your yield. Can the town have its own repurchase account? Sure, absolutely. Can you do it for $1 million? You bet. Can you do it for $100,000? Yeah, but it's probably not going to be worth it, because this is definitely an economies of scale transaction. The more you've got to put in it, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million kind of thing, the more it makes sense to participate in it. Repurchase agreements and repurchase in most investment policies, it's really just kind of a foregone conclusion. Yeah, you can do it. Yes, it's okay. Yes, it's safe. Yes, it's liquid. By golly, it's liquid. And yes, you'll get a good yield relative to other money markets, but it's complicated, and you got to open up a treasury. You got to open up a brokerage account to do it, and that brokerage account must agree to give you access to the repurchase desk. That's the tricky question. And I worked on a repurchase desk for about 3 years. Yeah, our minimum trade was about 50 million bucks. So one of those things that, yeah, you can do it. It's great to talk about at cocktail parties, but it really doesn't apply in this case, or many cases. Let me add that. It really doesn't apply in many cases. Probably City of Miami's doing it. Probably City of Jacksonville and Orlando are doing it. I doubt if St. Petersburg's doing it. I doubt if Fort Lauderdale's doing it. But that's the scale you got to have to make it work. If you want to talk about repo agreement, let's have another conference, okay? Let's do this like in 2 weeks or something, right? All right. So anyway, any questions? Any thoughts?
Just taking it back to number one a second with the treasuries. I was wondering what your thoughts were as far as that type of investment. And
they're great. They're just not yielding. I can give you a current today. Tuesday is usually a big turnover day, where in our portfolios we try to gauge them so that maturities will happen on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We try not to do it on Monday and Friday. Just people are groggy on the weekend and they want to get out of there on Friday. So when we've got money coming due in other portfolios, this is what it was today. 3-month treasury was 11 basis points. Hardly much to get excited about. 3-month agency paper, which would be a Fannie Mae, a Freddie Mac, a TVA even, Tennessee Valley Authority, 0.12. Not that much there, right? 12 months maturity. We're looking at treasuries at 0.14, agencies 0.15, 24 months, which is going to be our limit for the town. We're looking at the same 14 basis points on a treasury, and we're looking at 21 basis points on an agency. Now let's take a look at what, let's back up our aperture a little bit and say, okay, well, what are some of the other things that are out there in Florida? Because we can do CDs. There is a parallel between the state of Texas and the state of Florida based solely on the size of the population. Even though Texas has got like 36 million people, Florida's got like, 18 million, something like that. So you guys are still in that scale of a highly populated state, which makes it attractive to banking, makes it attractive to brokers, makes it attractive to everybody, right? So in the CD market, we are seeing today 3-month yields, 0.25. Still not really much to write home about, but when we're looking at a 12, on the agency, we've doubled it, right? 12 months, 0.60, that's respectable. 24 months, sad to say, but 0.70 actually looks pretty good. And then we get into the conversation, which we'll talk about later, about, what is one's outlook on the economy? Now we get into a little bit of the crystal ball gazing and the, work your magic type of stuff. But that's also why we are a non-discretionary manager. We want to align ourselves on your side of the table. We don't have an axe to grind. We're not out there pushing whatever the bond du jour is or whatever the fixed income product of the day is. We want to look at this and say, hey, what's the best for this portfolio? And that's what we try to do. Okay.
Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Ben.
Anything else?
Do you know if the town's ever been invested in treasuries at all over the last few years, maybe?
Not in the last few years. Let's see. Ishmael and I have been working since
2015.
Yeah, 2015. We haven't, and we have this conversation from time to time. It is my understanding that there's not even a security account set up, and I'm not saying go set one up, okay? But it's a different transaction. It's an institutional transaction that you got to go through the whole terrorist, are these guys, terrorists and all that stuff. Give me your social security number, give me your driver's license, give me, whatever else that brokerage firm is going to be asking for. And until you pass their criteria, they will not set an account up with you. Just laundering issues and all that sort of stuff that just we've all been kind of, I don't want to say acclimated to, but we've all been climatized to and expect. And honestly, with the way Florida is, I would be very surprised if there's ever a time really that securities make more sense than CDs. It might happen. Hey, I know there's some people that are on this call that remember when money markets back in the 80s were at 15, 16, 17%. We go back there, you bet there's going to be some securities out there that we're probably going to want to talk about. But we're not even, my gosh, we're not even in 20 time zones of that.
Gotcha.
Okay?
I appreciate it, Ben. Thank you.
Good. You bet.
All right, and Ben, he's going to give us an economic overview at the end of this presentation, and you also have more opportunities to ask questions if you would like.
Thanks.
Selecting and authorizing financial institutions and products. This number one is actually just some information about our banking services. Has nothing to do really with the investments, although we have our biggest money market account right now with Bank United. But our banking services are selected through the town's procurement process. Our main bank is Bank United, carries our operating accounts and carries our some of the depository account, and we have specific accounts for different things, disbursements, and we have securities and fraud kind of policies on each of them. So no one can, come into our depository account, and no one can take any money out of the disbursement account and so forth. And we have with them, we have our money market account, which is paying right now. It was paying probably over a point, over a percent, and now it's down to 35 basis points, just like everyone else. But 35 basis points for a money market account is still very, very, very good. So we'll look at some of that a little bit down the line. But I want you to know that we actually do not pay any banking fees because of our earned credit. We actually, our banking fees are usually anywhere from $500 to $750, and because of our volume, we actually don't pay any banking fees. So that's a big saving for the town. Plus, we make interest on the operating account. Number two, our investment services or products are selected through an RFP or solicitation that is issued by our investment advisor, which is Valley View at this time. This creates independence and transparency for the town, because neither the committee or the town manager or the finance director, none of us are involved when it comes to this solicitation. I'll give you an example. Last month, I told Ben we have already been receiving we have probably $400,000 in receivables from FEMA at this point. So we actually recouped our operating dollars. So I told Ben, I said, let's go out and see, since these interest rates are so low, let's see what we can find out there. And we found some good CDs, which you're going to see here soon. But they do all the solicitation. They go to the bank. So if you go here to number A, they maintain an updated list of financial institutions. They create and issue the CD or the money market account solicitation. They pre-qualify all the responding banks and products. And then the town manager and myself and Valley View at this time, we discuss the solicitation responses, and then the town manager and the finance director are the ones that select the investment product. And this is very interesting because I think it was a couple of years ago, Valley View did a solicitation, and we had a bank that came back with a very, very attractive yield. And when Ben started doing his homework on them, and they were QPD, Ben found some stuff that they did not like. He ran it through some of the other managers in Valley View, and we decided not to go with the highest yield. We decided to stay with safety and with liquidity. So it really, really works. I, for one, love the transparency, because when someone calls me and says, hey, listen, I have these products and all stuff, I give him Ben's email address. I call Ben or I email him and say, get this name and email. And when you have a solicitation, just send it to them. But I step away from all that. Competitive conditions. We need to create a competitive environment by considering multiple sources, which we do. Products without relying solely on yield, and considering at least 3 potential providers. We do all that. Internal controls should be designed to prevent losses of funds arising from fraud, error, misinterpretation, and imprudent actions. So to look at our internal controls, they include the following. Oversight of the investment committee and triennial meetings. So we meet every 4 months, and the investment committee looks at the portfolio. They ask all the questions. You're going to see now, who comprises the investment committee, but they're mostly residents of the town manager, myself, and the CFO of the Grams company. And so we're very transparent with the investment committee, and they oversee everything that we do. Oversight of the investment advisor. Now, when we do the investment portfolio every 4 months, we have to send Valley View all the bank analysis, the bank statements, and so forth. They look at the transactions, they look at the deposits, they look at the average deposit, they look at some of the information out there, and then they put together their report. So if there is overview there, because if they, our contracts state that we need to be ethical, and they will say something if it's not that way. Separation of duty reconciling of investment statements and revenue. I don't reconcile anything here, especially the bank statements. That's all done by the controller. The controller doesn't make any entries. That's done by the accountant. So we have different separations of duty here to make sure that that we have good internal controls. Investment decisions are made upon agreement between the town manager and the finance director. And all investments are audited by our independent auditors. When we have our independent audit, they actually go through all the process and all the investments, and they make sure that everything is copacetic. We take around 8 hours of continuing education. I do that actually, and every single year. Reporting, the investment officer should provide a quarterly investment. Now, this says quarterly because that's what we have in our policy, but we toned this down to be actually a quadrimester report because we didn't need to do this quarterly. So this policy needs to be updated to have it here, every 4 months. So we have a listing of holdings in the portfolio at cost and market value. Audits, as part of the annual independent audit, the external auditor shall review adherence to the investment policy and compliance with state investment law and internal controls to ensure compliance with policies and procedures. We have never had an issue here in any of these audits. The investment policy is subject to revision, consistent with laws, regulations, and needs of the town. The town council should review the policy on a periodic basis and adopt a resolution stating that has reviewed it in the policy and approves it, any changes or modifications. So, we need to look at the policy and maybe do some revisions if we need to. Like, for example, like I said here, this quarterly. I don't think quarterly is necessary, not at this time anyway. The investment committee. So the investment committee is comprised of the town manager, the finance director, the director of budget, which we don't have one, and supposed to be at least two town residents with investment expertise, or at least financial expertise appointed by the town manager. So our current committee is the town manager, myself, Charles Gutierrez, which is it's here, and we'll talk a little bit about the committee. Joaquin Medina, he's from Apollo Bank. He's also, they're all residents other than Andre, which is the CFO for the Grams, and also Lester Barreras is a new member, has his own CPA firm. And the committee procedures, committee meets triannually every 4 months. We approve minutes. What we do at that meeting is that the investment advisor discusses the current investment portfolio and provides a nationwide economic overview. There's discussion of the town's portfolio and financial position, and then we have additional discussions and comments. And there was a couple of years ago where we had a bank that was paying a pretty big yield, and then they were paying like 90 basis points. This is probably in 2016, where everyone else was paying like 40 basis points. So they kept paying 90 basis points. They wanted to sell the bank, so they were gathering all the deposits that they could, and we were benefiting from that. Then the yields went to 1.15, 1.25, and we told them, hey, listen, you need to come up to the plate because we need to increase this yield, and they were kind of dragging their feet. And so we took it back to the committee, and the committee gave them another, I think it was another 45 days. They advised that we gave them a 45 days because they have been loyal to us in the past and so forth. So it was good to discuss this with the committee. It was good to get their opinion, especially when they're residents of the town. So it's the committee. I think it plays a great role in this. And since we're in this subject, I would like to just have Charles Gutierrez again. Charles has been in this committee since inception, and he's a resident. And I would like for him to just talk a little bit about the committee, and you can ask him if you would like some questions about the committee. Charles?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Well, I can't add a whole lot more than what you've already expressed on how this works and everybody's roles. Other than, like you said, I've been a member from the inception. There've been a lot of cast of characters in the meantime. There's been about 8-10 years that we've been doing this. I can tell you that I feel comfortable in being in there and knowing that our money's being taken care of, the way that we look at everything. Before it used to be quarterly, now it's every 4 months. Very happy with the advice that's given us from our investment advisors. Ben's the best, and if you have any questions for me, please feel free. Anybody?
I'll ask a brief question. So just to be clear, you and your colleagues in the committee have no changes to recommend at this time.
I mean, I'm really comfortable with the way that this has been designed and the transparency. It seems like, at least with our investment advisor, they have nothing to gain. They're not pushing anything. And the advice that they give us seems to be spot on every time they come to the table. There are changes. The only thing that's constant here is change, but that's par for the course. I mean, especially now and the economic times that we're in. But I've seen the good days and the bad days, and I can tell you in the beginning, when we first started this committee, I was looking at towns around us that they couldn't pay the police force or the garbage wasn't being picked up, and we were in really healthy shape. So, my advice has always been I'm cheap by nature, and I like to keep money in the bank. And the stair step that works for me. It does, because we can get our best yields, best return. At the same time, we'll have the liquidity when we need it, if we need it. So, I think we've done really well. I really do.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Anybody else?
All right. If there's any other questions? All right, Charles, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Charles is, I'll tell you, these guys are great. They always come to the meetings and they always make good contributions. Investment advisor. So our investment advisor right now is Value View Consulting. We've been doing business for some years now, and we kind of know each other. So what do they provide? Well, they advise on investment opportunities. Hold on a second. Yep, advise on investment opportunities, of course. They review all the holdings on an ongoing basis. Sometimes I'll get a phone call from Ben, and he'll be saying, this CD is going to mature in a month, and I've been, watching some of the CD and some of these banks, and we have someone that's always sending us great CD rates. They have like a buffet of banks, but they're non-QPD, so we're always talking about that, and they always want to try to get in and to get our money, but they don't. So Value View will call every once in a while and say, we're watching this to see if it materializes. Review and evaluate all investment bank statements. They do that just to prepare the portfolio, not as an auditing tool. They prepare a triennial investment portfolio summary every 4 months, including all investments, rates, types, economic overview, investment holding, portfolio details, and book value comparison. You'll see a little bit of this in a second. They discuss the investment portfolio at every triennial meeting with the committee meeting, and provide an economic overview. They procure all investment solicitations. They maintain a statewide bank list, currently around 60 institutions, and they evaluate or qualify all banks for requirements. And this is very, very important, because when it comes to CD and money market accounts and new banks and stuff like that, I mean, we're not experts in this. And Value View, they are, and they're good at it, and so we feel comfortable with that type of advice. So when our current investment portfolio, this is a report, and that's what it's called, Investment Portfolio Summary. It's a report that we get every 4 months. Okay, again, we send them the information, they put it all together based, not on our word, based on the bank statements and analysis. And it's a 6-page report. Okay, we try to keep it short. This is just the main page. Then we go into a current period summary. In this case, this is the latest of May 31st. You have to understand that once that period ends, Then we have to wait for all the bank statements. We have to reconcile all the accounts, and then we have to send this to them. So it takes another probably 45 days, or let's say at least 30 days for them to get that report back to us, and then we put together the meeting with the committee and so forth. So so it takes around 45 days after the period ends. So in this current period summary, you're going to see the May 31st in this case period, and then the previous period, which was January 31st, 2020. Sorry. So you can see the volume. See, in January we had $18 million. Now this is total cash that we had, and the reason why it is so large is because we had just received, the majority of our taxes in January. And in this year it was a little bit different, because when we wrote and re-engaged in our contract with Miami-Dade Police Department, what we did was we added a clause to pay them every quarter, okay, instead of monthly. So now we're keeping our money a lot more into in our investments. So I figured that we would make anywhere from $25,000 to $30,000 a year just with that little change that we made. And then we held them not only a quarterly, but then after they send us the invoice, we're also holding them to statutes, which gives us another 45 days to pay. So as much as we can, we're keeping that money in investments as much as we can. And so then May 31st, we're down to $50 million, and it's almost that payment for Miami-Dade. Down here, we have a little summary on the investment, on the income. So this period, meaning the 4 months, we made around $61,000. And for the year, for the fiscal year, as of May 31st.
Ismail, I apologize. I got a call, so I'm going to log off. Or I'm going to leave it logged on, but I'll try to get back. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Be safe. For the fiscal year as of May 31st, $140,000, $139,000. So this just some of the numbers of how much income we have made through those periods. We're going to see. I'm going to show you also a trend on interest income, so it's going to be a lot more clear for you. So the next page has graphs, and Ben actually goes through these graphs and makes some comments about the S&P and the Treasury and so forth. Then we have the investment holdings. So here we have a list of everything that we usually have, which, if you can see, can you see my mouse pointer? Okay, great, thank you. So this is a pool cash. So each time you see this that says pool cash, this is our operating account. Okay, so in this case we have $628,000 in our operating account. We usually need to keep anywhere from $600,000 to $800,000, $900,000 in an operating account for expenses as a balance. And then you have the this is the electric utility account, and then you have the money market account in Bank United, which now is making 35 basis points, but it was just making more than 1%. I think it was 1.40 or something. It was just crazy the way that this decreased. And we have some money in SBA. We always keep some money in there because we don't want to close that account. And also we have the TD Bank. These three that say TD Bank is our bond money. This is the money that goes into interest, money goes into principal, and the CD that we have with them. So just so you understand, the bond is paid automatically, okay? The TD Bank comes into our electric utility account on the 25th of the month, and debits our account and takes that money automatically. So, that's the way that those bonds get paid. So this is the investment holdings. Another page of this portfolio is a portfolio composition, the portfolio throughout, time here. Trends in September of 2011, as you can see, and then compared to the SBA pool and the T-bills and so forth. And again, this is just conversation that we have in the committee, and sometimes we can see some trends here that we're very interested in. And the last page of this report is this book value comparison. Again, this is another list of all the investments. The difference with this one is that it tells you what we had in January, and then it tells you the increases and decreases that we had by different account, and then gives us the May 31st, or the latest period. So it's kind of a rollover comparison here. Investment revenue trends. Since 2013, we made $77,000. As you can see, we have increased and maximized our revenue from investments. Our highest year was 2019, $223,000. We did great that year. And let me tell you, the reason why we're able to capitalize in these investments is because we're always watching, we're always churning, we're always looking at the opportunities. In 2020, this is as of last Friday, we earned $147,000. So we expect, of course, we don't expect to make as much money in 2020 because what's going on with the interest rates. But as you can see, we have always tried to maximize. I remember the first time the town manager saw this number, he thought it was a mistake. He didn't know that we made that much money every year in interest. But we do, and the reason is because we try to maximize. So I'll give you an example of some of the ways that we do maximize. This is as of Friday, and this is our, remember I just showed you May 31st. So what I did is I updated this as of Friday. And in May 31st, okay, we had this money market account at 35 basis points. It had just changed, like, I don't know, 3 weeks before this, it had changed to 35 basis points. So I called Ben and I said, Ben, we need to do something. I would like just to take a look at the market and see what's going on, and see, let's just do a solicitation. I mean, we don't have to engage. We don't have to commit with anyone, just solicit. And so we did. And what we ended up with was that we found a bank that was able to give us a 6 months, a 9 month, a 12 months, and an 18 month at 60 basis points, 75 basis points, 92 basis points, and 96 basis points. So what we did is we invested $1 million on each of these CDs, maintaining it, again, safety and liquidity, okay, because it's every 6 months and 9 months and so forth. So, but by doing this, if you look at the bottom here, we earned an additional $27,000 over 18 months by changing from 35 basis points to all these CDs. And this is what we try to do all the time, is just work smart with what we have, right? Because, I mean, there's not much that we can do today. Look at these basis points. I mean, they're minutia. They're very small, even the SBA. And the SBA, you have to be careful, because we usually don't put a lot of money in the SBA, because, like what Ben said, there is a commercial paper and there's risk. So if the SBA is 43 and our money market account is 35, we'll keep it at 35 all day long, because we don't want to make a line to get our money if something happens here. Okay, so so as of Friday, we had around $14 million at these rates, actually 15 million, and we try to maximize as much as possible. And that is really the presentation. This is a current economic overview. What I wanted to do was, and of course, ask any questions you would like, and have Ben talk a little bit about the current economic overview. Or the way I would like to do this is, if you have any questions about the presentation, first of all, but any questions about the current economic overview in the nation or in Florida, something like that, please ask, because this is a great opportunity. You're really getting, you're going to get good information and insights from Valley View at this time. So please, I want to open the floor. So if there's any questions, let me know.
Yeah, I'll go. I guess, Ben, just to confirm, are we currently considered to be in a recession as a country?
Good question. I haven't heard that word yet. I don't think anybody's willing to mention it. I think that we're going to have to get through some hurdles before we can see clearly and have some of this smoke clear. I think it's one of those things we always got to be aware of. And if you think we're never in at risk of a recession, I think that's when the problems really start. You know, we see these unemployment numbers bounce around. I'm more looking for the trend of things than I am an exact number. I don't, you know, with what we've seen this year already, it has absolutely rewritten every economic book that I can think of. I don't want to throw a bunch of numbers at people. I've got some interesting things that I think are worth at least knowing, and kind of seeing where we are and then seeing how that changes over the next few months. You know, we've got a number of really peculiar, exciting, if you want to use that word, events that are coming up here between now and the end of the year that really are going to be telling on us as a country, on how we really do react to things. And with every day, I would have told you that the most important next event was going to be the election. I don't think that anymore. I think that the most important thing right now that we're going to be looking at is how these schools start up. And I don't know what it's like in Florida, but I can tell you what it's like in Virginia. The technical term is it's a mess. And we don't know if we're going to have teachers that are recording their lessons on Monday, teaching one group of live students on Tuesday, Wednesday, then sending them home to go get, you know, do the video, and then bringing in the next group for Thursday, Friday, and then changing that up every so often to keep the social distancing rules in effect and also try to keep folks in masks. I don't even know what it's like down in South Florida, but I got to imagine that that's one of the things that's being discussed. You know, are we going to have colleges going back to school in next month? A big issue. What's going to happen with all the sports programs and all of those things? I know that dormitories are not going to be full. They can't be full. So what do you do to keep a dormitory that you've had 3 students in for the last 20 years? Now you can have 1 or 2 in it, and now the other person's got to go find housing off campus or something. So those are all questions, not the least of which, if in fact these schools are going to be going on some kind of video internet conferencing arrangement, who pays for that? I think it's the school's responsibility, just as if it were a textbook, but I don't know that. And I know there's a lot of school budgets that don't have the budget for that. So how does that look, and what does that look like? All I can tell you is I don't know, but I think it's going to be a big issue. And everybody that's got college age, kindergarten age, elementary, middle school, high school age kids, I got to think that that's pretty much on top of your list of what that's going to look like. Then we get to the election. What does that look like? Holy mackerel. And then we get to retail heaven, which is the holiday buying season. And I know already you guys see the failure list probably closer than I do. But when I look at the list of retailers that are barely hanging on, and if we don't have any kind of just a decent retail season, I don't know what that's going to look like with Macy's if they go under, for example. Bloomingdale's, another one. I've got a sister that's in high-end luxury goods in San Francisco. You would think that that's the quintessential market, probably next to Miami Beach or Rodeo Drive, or I don't know what the name of the road is. What's the place up in New York that I'm trying to think?
Fifth Avenue?
Fifth Avenue?
Thank you, Fifth Avenue, okay? But whatever that looks like and wherever that goes, that's going to have a big impact on what the economy does, and it's going to have a trickle-down effect from employment, sales tax, what people are able to pay their mortgages and all of that sort of thing. Here's some numbers that were interesting and I think are noteworthy. In April, 31% of people with a house payment missed it. In May, that number dropped to 30%. In June, 32% of the people missed their house payment. A third of the people out there missed their house payment. what's that going to look like 6 months from now should that continue? Unemployment, starting to look okay. Current unemployment as of July 2nd was about 11.1%. In Florida, you guys are shooting about 14.5%, which is about where it was the last time we had this talk, which was what, 6 weeks ago, Ishmael, something like that?
Right.
The highest unemployment, this is a slam dunk question. When was the highest unemployment in the USA? Easy. That was 1933. It was 24.9%. It was the Depression, right? Okay, you don't get any credit for that. When was the lowest unemployment number, and what was it? It was 1%, and it was during World War I, 1917, 1918. 1%, big number, or little number. Capacity utilization in manufacturing. We normally shoot for 85%. That's when we feel like we're hitting on all cylinders, and manufacturing is buying goods, making goods, and producing goods and shipping them out the door. Right now, we're at 68.6%. That number is surprisingly strong compared to a complete shutdown in the economy. Usually in the end of July, we're seeing kind of 75 to 80 as a capacity utilization number. So we're within striking distance. And if we take a look at that 68 to, let's say, mid 70s, we're looking at about 7%, give or take. That's about the number that I'm hearing that most local economies are off on their sales tax projection. So is there a direct correlation? I'm not smart enough to tell you yes or no about that, but I can tell you that what the expectations were as far as when we first started looking at shutdown and when we first started trying to calculate what is going to be the sales tax revenue loss number, it was in the double digits. I'll send Ishmael a link because the Federal Reserve does a really good job of trying to track this. And they've got some extremely smart people that work for us as citizens. And the Federal Reserve out of Cleveland is the one that's leading the charge on trying to track this. If you care, Ishmael, I'll send you the link to the page in the study that's working on this right now. It's an active study. But if you care to go to it, you can find it under the Cleveland Fed. But they do a really good job of trying to track this because we're all trying to look into our crystal ball and say, what is really going to be the impact of businesses that have closed, businesses that are reopening, businesses that have closed or reopening and now closing again, and businesses that never reopened. There's a lot of moving parts in that equation. Let's see, a couple more things and then I'll step aside. But surprisingly, one area of the economy that's ahead of projection is motor vehicles and parts. It's running at 105%. So either that says that people have just worn out their vehicles and they've got to replace them, which is a possibility. But it also might say that the deals are so great out there that you can't afford not to buy a new car because interest rates are so low. And this is a good time to be buying a car and either new or used because the deals are out there and the manufacturer's got to move these things off their floor. I'll also tell you that it would be nice for Ben Day to go out here and buy a $75,000 King Ranch F-150, but I guarantee you it ain't going to happen. So go look at the price of new cars and make an informed decision, all right? But automobiles are looking really strong right now. Housing. This is a topic that a lot of people don't understand why we look at housing. The reason we look at housing is because so much of the economy goes into building or maintaining a house. And it's very important to the overall economy. when you stop and think that somewhere between 50 and 70% of the economy has to do with housing, whether that's single family, multifamily, whatever you've got. Housing starts increased 17% month over month in June. That's a good number. Building permits rose 2.1% month over month. We'd like to see that higher, but the fact that building permits are up, that's very encouraging. Single family home starts in June were up 17.2%, a little bit different number, but still that's encouraging. Housing starts increased 20% in the South, and that's really going to be kind of Florida, Orlando South, the Atlanta area, maybe Pensacola, but those are going to be your population areas. And of course, there will be some North Carolina thrown in there. So at 20% housing starts in the South, that's encouraging. Let's see. That's really about all I've got, without going into the numbers that can be absolutely mind-numbing. I would say that it is encouraging what at least I'm seeing and what I continue to get surprised by. The stock market is actually doing surprisingly well. I'm not sure that I really understand why that is. Yes, there's good value in a 50% sell-off, but we also need to have mom and pop Main Street open back up and go full tilt. We're not seeing that, and we're not close to that. I think a lot of people are scared, and this is one of those things that it's a good time to be sober. It's a good time to be saying your prayers, and it's a good time to be paying attention to business. So I'm more than happy to try to field some questions, but I'd like to hear what's on y'all's mind and tell me, what are your concerns? Tell me what you think is good, and tell me what you think probably needs some more attention. I learn as much from these conversations as I try to impart, but I guarantee you that I learn more than I give you guys. So, questions, answers, thoughts.
I guess on my end, to be honest with you, I think you guys covered everything that I had a question about as far as where things are at. Not just economically, but in terms of our investments and how we operate. And I'm coming away a lot happier, better understanding, the way that we function on that front. And honestly, Ismael and Eddie have always talked about the value that you guys have brought to the table, Ben, and I saw it tonight. So I can't complain. I'm happy. I don't have any further questions or any concerns.
Well, thank you. This is an ongoing relationship. This is an ongoing discovery process, especially now. And, it is one of those things that, I don't think anybody's got the answers, but it does not help to keep your mouth shut, and you never know where that next great idea is going to come from. I said this the last time, and I will say it again. As these associations that are set up to help government finance people come back online, I encourage full participation. And I say that to all of my portfolios and all of my clients, and especially all my friends like Ishmael, that go see what those things are about and participate in them, because what you learn in the conference line, offline kind of thing from people that might say something, it sometimes can absolutely make the difference in a success and not so much of a success. I've missed those this summer. This is usually the time when it's off budget time, and I get to go to these things in Texas, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, all over the place. I'm going to those things. And I miss them because that exchange of information and ideas just hasn't been there. And I guarantee you there are people out there figuring out this thing with the sales tax loss revenue thing. It's interesting that the offset that would have come also from the loss of these commercial buildings that haven't been running at capacity yet people are going home and they're running their air conditioning and using all the electronics at home, there is an offset there. I don't know what that is, but it's not a total loss just because these, we've lost some revenue on the taxes that would have been paid on the electric bill. It's been made up somewhere else, and it's from home. So things like that happen, and we got to be real clear about what we're saying, what we're seeing, and how we're seeing it. So it's not a total write-off, and it's not a total number that goes down to zero.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and on the heels of that, Councilman Dieguez, I remember I don't know, maybe a year ago or something like that. I was presenting something at the chambers, and I talked about the transparency module, and you asked me, you said, is our investments going to be also presented in that transparency module? And just so you know that my word is oak, okay? Here's the transparency module. If you go to the bottom of the transparency module and related content, you have investment holdings. And when you click on that, you're going to be able to see all the investments holding, including the latest, which is the May 2020 report. You click on that and you see all the reports. So all the reports are out there as promised, okay? So I just wanted you to know that.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Ismael.
And if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask, and I will definitely try my best to answer it, or Ben, or maybe Charles, or the town manager.
Actually, is Mr. Gutierrez still on the line?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Gutierrez, I didn't have the opportunity to chime in when you were speaking, but I did listen to you. And I just first of all, I wanted to thank Ismael and Mr. Day. Again, I'm gonna, I usually stay quiet when I don't know a lot about something and try to absorb as much that I can. And I did that. I really took in a lot. And some of the things that I took away was really your risk aversion is really for the purpose of insulating the town from any exposure. And I appreciate all the, the talk that you did, the three pillars: the safety, the liquidity, and then, the yield. Being a novice in investing or financing, I guess people come up to us and say, "Oh, well, what's your return? You can get so much more. What are you doing?" And after your presentation, it seems that our concern should not be so focused on the yield and really the safety and liquidity, but particularly to Mr. Gutierrez. So I appreciate what you guys have gone over, and I appreciate at least the insight you brought to me. But in particular, Mr. Gutierrez, who's been serving on this since inception, I wanted to thank you, and not only as a town resident, but really as somebody who takes the time to volunteer for this position. Thank you so much for being a good steward of the town's, I guess, investments and just giving your time to the town. So just very grateful, not just to you, but all your colleagues that serve on that committee. So thank you, sir.
I appreciate that. I do.
Okay. Any other questions? If we don't, then that is it for this workshop. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. We really thank you, and we always appreciate your support. And please feel free, if you have any other questions, you have all this documentation out there, and you have it in the transparency module also. Let us know, and we'll definitely answer any questions that you may have, or any suggestions.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night.
Thank you all.
Mami, ¿qué papi? Mami, ¿qué papi?